welcome to State of Business on our television. I'm Ashingsani Veerasinghe. Let's have a look at the headlines for today. TNA pledges to support Sajith Premadasa. JVP urges the Parliament to punish the wrong-behaved parliamentarians. Let's begin the news looking at the latest looming presidential election from our Next President segment. The Tamil National Alliance today officially announced that all political parties in their alliance would support New Democratic Front candidate Minister Sajith Premadasa in the upcoming presidential election. Issuing a statement, the TNA said Minister Sajith Premadasa has reiterated his firm commitment to uniting all the people in the country and taking forward the country towards progress and prosperity. Hence, they would support his alliance in the presidential election. Thus, the release was jointly issued by TNA leader MP R. Sambandhan, Ilangai Tamil Arsu Katchi leader MP Mave Senadiraja, Tamil Elam Liberation Organization leader MP Selvam Adekkalanathan and People's Liberation Organization of Tamil Elam leader Dharmalingam Siddharthan. The TNA highlights that the issue of suitable political solution to the national question within a united, undivided country, the issue of missing persons, the issue of persons in custody, the release of lands, resettlement and rehabilitation, the implementation of commitments made by the Sri Lankan government both domestically and internationally need to be contended. Thus, the TNA also stated that an examination of the manifestos launched by the two presidential frontrunners suggests that placing confidence in the policies of Sajith Premadasa would be the correct decision. UPFA parliamentarian Dr. Sarath Amunugama states that SLPP presidential candidate's election manifesto is women-friendly and has included measures to stop female exploitation. Thus, the parliamentarian Dr. Sarath Amunugama made these claims addressing a media briefing organized by the SLPP this morning.
Now I'm quoting page 27 of his manifesto. A mechanism will be put in place for women to be able to report violence or harassment to the nearest police station through their mobile phones. So he has clearly identified the problem and found a solution. He's also saying sexual and gender-based violence has increased in our country. This is experienced by women in public transport and in society in general. We will create a society that respects women and aspires to the highest moral and ethical standards to protect girls and women. Then another one. A 24-hour emotional support and advisory helpline will be established under the Ministry of Women and Children's Affairs so that women can contact the Centre for Support and Help. And also, I must say that our other candidates have not adverted to this subject. This is a major problem in Sri Lanka and actually of whole of Asia. So, Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa in his manifesto, which I am quoting now, page 27, has clearly identified that problem and given a solution.
Postal voting for the forthcoming presidential election that began on 31st of October saw its last day today, with 659,317 voters being registered for postal voting. Meanwhile, addressing a media briefing today morning, election monitoring agent Pafrel states that there were about 58,000 postal applications that were rejected.
Postal voting for the presidential election began on the 31st of October and continued on the 1st, 4th and 5th of this month. Thus, all public servants who were unable to cast their postal votes for the forthcoming presidential election were given the opportunity to cast their vote from 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. today. This was the final opportunity for the public servants to cast their postal votes, given the fact that they were unable to do so in the previous occasions.
We are deploying more than 5,000 observers, postal observers already deployed in the last 4 days. But we are planning to deploy stationary observers around 3,000, and we will deploy mobile team. There are 225 mobile teams across the country, and there will be special teams, 25 teams also, considering the requirement of the ground. The elections observation so far with related to the postal voting went in a peaceful manner. We really happy. But only concern is there were about 58,000 postal applications were rejected, and we think that the Elections Commission will take some actions if the government officers, they have not fulfilled their duty during they submit the postal applications.
Executive Director of PAFRL, Rohini Hettiarch, went on to state that the misuse of government resources and government power is less this time compared to the past presidential elections.
The misuse of the government resources and the government power is one of the critical area where we are concerned even these elections. But compared with the past presidential elections, it is less this time. And also this time, the biggest issue with 24 ministries, mainly they were recruit the people immediately after the election declarations and even after nominations. We have noticed, we got number of complaints against these ministries. There are 24 ministries, including the Prime Minister's ministry, and also the provincial council and the local government also misuse the government resources and the government power. This is the difference between the last presidential election and this elections. Generally, the complaints come against the ruling party or ruling coalition, but this time, these complaints going against the opposition parties as well.
Former commanding officer of the Civil Defence Force in Mullaitivu, Lieutenant Colonel Ratnapriya Bandhu, pledges support for the SLPP presidential candidate Gotabaya Rajapaksa in the forthcoming presidential election. Thus, Lieutenant Colonel Ratnapriya Bandhu showed his solidarity for SLPP presidential candidate addressing a media briefing in Colombo yesterday. Lieutenant Colonel Ratnapriya Bandhu came into limelight after receiving an emotional farewell from young and old men and women, including the rehabilitated ex-LTTE cadres. The retired army officer mentioned that the former Secretary of Defence Gotabaya Rajapaksa gave job opportunities to about 40,000 rehabilitated and unemployed youth under the Civil Defence Force. He further added that with the government shift in 2015, these employment opportunities came to stand still and that the youngsters in North are in trauma due to the unemployment. Under this context, he pledges to support SLPP presidential candidate Gotabaya Rajapaksa in the nearing presidential election, stating that he will be able to solve these issues as he did when he was the Defence Secretary. Addressing the event, former Director General of the Civil Defence Force, retired Rear Admiral Anand Pires, also addressed the media.
I would like to praise Mr. Gotabaya Rajapaksa for creating Civil Defence Force, which is known as Gramarakshaka Seva earlier, and not only releasing about 40,000 troops as a result of building this 40,000 strong Civil Defence Force, but after the war, all 40,000 men and women were used for development activities in all districts of Sri Lanka.
Stay tuned for more news after this short break. Welcome back after the break. JVP parliamentarian Bimal Ratnayaka today questioned in the parliament over the appointment of retired Colonel W.W. Ratnapriya Bandhu as a commissioner for the Office for Reparations. He raised this question highlighting some media reports which said that the retired colonel had come forward to support one of the main candidates at the presidential election. It was several months before retired Colonel Ratnapriya Bandhu was appointed as a commissioner for the Office for Reparations on the recommendation of the Constitutional Council. Speaking in the parliament, JVP parliamentarian Bimal Ratnayaka said even when his name was proposed for the portfolio, most questioned over his affiliations to one political party. The parliamentarian said that, however, he was appointed to the post as he promised not to engage in any political activities. The parliamentarian said that contrary to that pledge, today's newspapers report that he had promised to support the presidential candidate from the Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna. MP Ratnayaka said that it is very clear that he had violated the regulations which he was bound to respect and an inquiry should be conducted against Colonel Ratnapriya soon. He also highlighted that he should be punished within the legal framework. He further said that otherwise this could be a model for the public officials to neglect the rules and regulations and do politics disregarding the prime purpose of the independent commissions. Public Enterprise, Kandyan Heritage and Kandy Development Minister and Leader of the House, Lakshman Kiriyala, says that 54 parliamentarians who offensively behaved in the parliament and found guilty will be punished. Leader of the House, Minister Kiriyala, said so answering to a question raised by JVP parliamentarian Bimal Ratnayaka in the parliament today. Janatha Vimukti Peramuna parliamentarian Bimal Ratnayake today questioned as to why the delay to punish the parliamentarians who engaged in the violent clashes that took place in the parliament between MPs during last year's constitutional crisis. Replying him, Speaker Karu Jayasuriya said that police had conducted an inquiry and the report had been sent to the Attorney General's department for advice for next steps. However, the parliamentarian who was not satisfied with the answer said that the special committee appointed by the Speaker to probe the violent clashes had already recommended disciplinary action against over 50 MPs who were involved. The parliamentarian also said that the damages to the public property have been replaced using taxpayer funds and the wrongdoers should be punished. He also stressed it is shameful to represent the House unless such unruly behaviours by the policymakers are left unattended. Signing of the Millennium Challenge Corporation Development Assistance Grant was making headlines over the past few days, and several prominent figures and groups urged the government not to sign the agreement hurriedly before the presidential election. Against this backdrop, issuing a statement, the US Embassy in Colombo states the USA looks forward grant signing and parliamentary approval of Sri Lanka after the election, which falls on November 16th.
The Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal for the implementation of $480 million worth Millennium Challenge Corporation grant, which was proposed by the Minister of Finance Mangala Samaravira last Tuesday. However, key figures such as opposition leader Mahinda Rajapaksa and many other social groups urged the government that no agreement should be hurriedly signed with any foreign government just days before a decisive presidential election in the country. However, issuing a statement yesterday, the US Embassy in Colombo noted that the United States welcomes the decision of the Cabinet of Ministers to approve the $480 million Millennium Challenge Corporation Development Assistance Grant. The statement further says, quote begins, with presidential elections approaching, the United States anticipates working toward grant signing and parliamentary approval with the government of Sri Lanka after November 16, 2019. Per our policy applied in all 29 partner countries, the Sri Lankan Parliament will have the opportunity to revive and approve the grant. The United States looks forward to continuing our partnership with Sri Lanka and to supporting its efforts to reduce poverty through economic growth. Quote ends. Subsequently, the embassy says that Sri Lanka requested this support, which is expected to benefit at least 11 million Sri Lankans through the funding of government and private sector identified needs. Moreover, the statement highlights that Sri Lankan government has posted the draft of the grant agreement on the Ministry of Finance website, where it is available for the people to review, and that it clearly shows that the United States will not own or lease any land under the Development Assistance Grant. Sri Lanka will oversee and manage all grant-funded projects throughout the implementation of the 5-year grant assistance agreement, it further added.
Stay tuned for stock updates after this short break. Welcome back after the break. Trading at Colombo Stock Exchange ended on a negative note today. The all-share price index dropped 24.45 points to close at 5,932.07, and the S&P SL20 dropped 22.91 points to close at 2,935.32. The turnover was 599 million rupees and over 36 million shares were traded. Up next are Forex rates. That's all the news for today. Join us tomorrow at the same time. Until then, take care. Good night.